Hello. I thought I'd do a little extra video before the animation one, just to go over a few tips for skinning. These are just a few things that obviously I couldn't squeeze in my last video, but they're really helpful and well worth knowing, and they will save you a lot of time. And most of the time when people hear save time, effort, sounds good. So yeah, it's one of them really. The first thing I'm going to show you in this is how to save time doing skinning. Doing the influence and all the verts. It can take a tremendous amount of time if you have to go in, do both sides, and it's a real effort. Which is why when we're modelling, obviously we work in such a way that we build half of the model, then we flip it over. It saves the time and effort creating the whole model, from scratch. So, it's same in skinning. We can actually mirror the weights, the skin weights, from one side to the other, meaning we only have to make one side perfect. This works with biped. It works well with, extremely well with cat, which is obviously what we're using. I always found it was a bit dodgy with bones, but it seems to work reasonably well. So the way to do this, okay, because I'm wittering, I realise that again. As you can see on this model, I'll have done that, on this one. Let me do a better example now that I've done it. If I select the whole arm, I'm going to put that to 1. Let's get that up. There we go. I'm going to put that to 1. Obviously, though, on this arm, I focused a little more on it, as you can see. It's been broken down. It's been done to all the fingers. It hasn't been blended yet. So you'd want to do this process after you've done it as well. But if you just want to get a rough idea, when you're making it, what it's going to look like, then you can do this early on. So later on, perhaps I'll just do it again in the video to show you how it looks when it has been properly blended. It's pretty straightforward actually, this. All you've got to do, right, is select entire model. I don't even think you need to do that, but I've got into a habit of doing it. Go down and you'll see mirror mode. Select that, and you can see that it's actually split the model in half. You've got blue on one side, green on the other. See these bars? Yeah. So there's 2 ways of doing this. I mean, we've got one, which is pasting bones. So you could literally paste the influence on the bones onto the other side. But I've never found that works too well with biped and do you know what? I'm just going to say it full stop. I just never found it works that well. I much prefer doing it with the verts. So it takes all the data from the verts and it literally flips it over to the other side. As long as the other side is exactly the same. Okay? So that it knows it's exactly the same. Otherwise, you're going to have some irregularities. It will try and average it out. Don't get me wrong. It will try and actually do something if it's different. But it won't get it, obviously, as good. You'll have to go in and fix it afterwards. I think this is most common with things like the face, where, the 2 sides may not necessarily be symmetrical. Or even with clothing, where, I've got little ridges down the bottom here on the legs. They're not going to be exactly the same. We might get some problems there. Anywho, quite simply, because I've done the influence better on this side, not brilliantly, but better, because I haven't blended it yet. I'm going to take the green verts and paste them over to the blue. So bear in mind, obviously you can do this either way around. If you started on this side and made this look really good, then you can always paste it the other way around, blues to green. So it doesn't really matter. But remember, always work on one side of the model if you're using this mirror method, because otherwise you can't so easily. You can do it, but you can't so easily switch in between. It's much easier to do it this way. Okay, so get that into your workflow. So I'm going to paste my green to blue verts. There you go. And we've seen it's done something. If I turn off mirror mode, I'm going to go in. I'm going to select that bone. Oh, I've missed it. Select that bone there. And as you can see now, it no longer takes up the whole arm. There's a little bit of regularity. I suppose this is what I mean. This side hasn't got a watch, so it's just kind of gone, oh, what do I do with the watch? And it's gone, well, I know over here, you know, this whole arm here, it doesn't have anything, so I'll just assign it to that bone. That's exactly what it's done. It's just assigned it randomly to the bone it thinks is correct, which is fine. We can go over that afterwards, can't we? Because that's probably the forearm more than anything. The hand, see that's done. Little spots where you can see little faults, but however, saying that, that could possibly be a fault on this side, and it is. You can see there's a few hiccups there, which I'll quickly realise when I start moving the model around. But you get the point, you know, it'd save you an awful lot of time, and it's quite accurate. I mean, that's obviously it even picked up my error, so you know it's very good. Obviously, main area for use is going to be the legs and arms. You know, you probably won't need it much for the torso. They're kind of straightforward. You can do it all in one. But for the leg and arms, yeah, it's a really, really helpful. Okay, so tip number 2 is movement. I'll give you a couple examples of this. The first one is one that I'm looking at now. If, like, I take, for instance, the spine bone up here, rotate it forward. I'll rotate it a little bit crazy there. Let's move that forward. There we go. Whoa! A little bit jumpy there. Okay, now, when you're doing the influence, just like in the video I did before where I moved the arm, it's good to also do it obviously when you're doing all the other body parts as well. So make sure that you try and do a range of movements, like this one for instance. I've already sorted out the influence here, but you can see that it folds nicely there. Before, it just went straight through and dug in. So you can kind of use this to sort of you know, end up with or make your skinning nice and smooth very, very easily. So yeah, that's another tip. I know that's similar to the other one, but it's worth pointing out that, you know, it is really good stuff. And the next thing I was going to do was to work on the sideways, so even tilting it like that, things like the arms and stuff you can start to fix because of that. See how they dig into each other? And we can start going in and sorting that out, like let's say I'll turn it on, select them two, and where are you to weight tools? There you are. Select the loop, if it has. I don't know if it has. I have to do this one manually, I think. Yeah. This will be quite a loop. There we go. You can see what's going on now. Also, another way of working, I've just turned that on, but if you do want to see the bones, don't forget you've also got Alt X or see-through. So it's kind of another way of doing things. Right, so if I've got that, I'm going to choose the clavicle. Is that his upper arm actually? Yeah, it's upper arm. I wish Max would fix this bone thing. I really do. It's quite off-putting at times. So we know that at the moment all this influence is currently on spine 3. That one right there. We've obviously got to share that now between actually a couple of bones, because there is another one in there that we've got to share it with. And that is, it's a very, very tiny one. Very, very tiny one. Which will be over here. It's our little clavicle bone. That one right there. So we've got to share it with that. And also the upper arm as well. So I kind of would first let that have the influence. way before the upper arm. See what we get. See, it's already fixed most of it. And for the most part, that's pushing towards 1. I want to leave it with some influence. I might even give it, as I said, influence for a little tiny bit of influence from the arm as well. I think that's pretty crucial. Yeah, there we go. And vice versa. If I select that, let's go back the other way. So select in the clavicle and give it 0.2 of that. So you can see it's a lot smoother now. Of course, we've got areas up here we still need to smooth out, but you get the idea. If you make sure you do a full range of movement, that's my point for this second tip. Move your character, and make sure it looks right. So tip number 3, and this kind of links closely to the last one. As you can see, got the leg up here, starting to skin that. There's an important thing. You have to ensure that you keep flow lines. I couldn't just leave this like that. As you can see, I've obviously applied the same weight all the way around, but there's a really sharp edge right here, and really we want the curve to go smoothly up around about here instead, into that, instead of like so. So a nice way of doing that, you can use the scale weight tool to just bump it up slowly until you're kind of about happy. So I know that eventually when I do this afterwards, after I've mirrored across, and I'll just clean it up, these middle ones, I can move them, tweak them slightly, so it's kind of in between. It makes that nicely curve. But for now, as long as it looks relatively correct, you could like that as well. I mean, if we look from all angles, it's a very, very sharp. So, wherever possible, play around with them, see what works best. And don't forget to keep turning it, keep checking. That's currently set to parent. We really want that set to pelvis, and I want to start adding some influence to the lower leg. There we go. That's getting better. Yeah. That's also set to it. So we give that maybe a little bit like that. But to be honest, we won't see effect with this till we did the other side. We do the other side as well. But there we go. So that's kind of starting to get there. Kind of. Right. Anyway, so that was tip 3. Wherever possible, as I said, try and make it flow. So one last very quick example of this is right here. This leg's lifted up. This is still in its same original position. So I'm going to have to blend it between the two. So first I'm going to make sure that it's not on parent anymore. It's on pelvis. And then I'm going to lock it up. So yes, that looks about right. I think 0.25 will do. I don't think I need to go any further than that. And the same with this one down here. So it's currently set to parent. I need to make sure that that's on pelvis. And I'm just going to blend it in between so it looks sort of correct. Yep, that's kind of getting there. These need changing. Loop. And I'm going to give some influence of that onto the pelvis. Not an awful lot though. I'm a bit overboard there. Okay, so I know that this needs a little bit more now. Yeah, that's probably a little too little. There we go. That's much better. So you see it kind of gives more of a clothing-like feel which is important. That's what we're going for. It has to flow. And that's something you get used to when you're doing characters. I'll be going through flow lines with you, and it's important that these lines are carefully in place before you get to skinning. It has to be on the model. It has to be thought through. So creating a character model or any creature or organic model really requires a lot of thought beforehand, especially if it's being animated. Anyway, so that's the next tip. Tip 3. So we'll go on to tip 4, possibly. Right, tip 4. This is a small one, but a very useful one. So as you can see, I used the loop button tool, I should say, to select the entire loop here of this, and it's really still jagged, and that's kind of the best without a lot of tweaking that I can get it. However, there's another button. It's called the blend button, and you may think this is a magical button to make everything work. Sometimes it is, sometimes it works really, really well for like joints and that. In this case, it should work reasonably well. As you can see, it's just blending it out. You could do the same with this one here. If I loop it, blend, and it does its best. Loop. Ooh. Don't think so for that one though. So there obviously is some limitations, but yeah, as you can see, it's not that bad, is it? Kind of works pretty well. I think that's probably about it for that leg. So as you can see, this now, while I'm on it, I've made this more or less 1 around the ring here, because if I left it as 1 or quite a high number on the lower leg, then it would just point in a different direction. So in fact, to demonstrate that, I'll just put it back for 1 second. Lower leg, I'll put it to 1. You can see it points over there. So you have to, in order to make it follow the foot correctly, you have to do that. So the leg there is quite a complicated one, really. Hopefully, if I bend it now, it should bend reasonably correctly. Yeah, that looks pretty good to me. Yeah, that does look pretty good. Rotate the foot. Yeah, alright, that. It's not bad. Okay, so yeah, anyway, that's tip 4. Moving on. Right, my final tip, this links to a good few of the previous ones. With the legs, they can be a little bit trickier than some of the other parts. For example, if I stretch out like that, see, of course, it follows. It kind of does an alright job, but if I split this one, notice it doesn't, and then it looks just really strange. So in the same way that obviously we did previously, where I showed you, move the character around, have a look, deform it, and then apply the weights accordingly to fix it. It's a similar story, but it's a little more difficult because obviously you've got to average it out. So it's not a major tip. It's just something to definitely look out for, and not to be a little bit lazy about going, oh, that'll do. Do try and average it out. So I think with this one, does it have it? See, all the my mind's gone blank. All the influence is all on the left leg and not the right leg. So we know that we've got to start bringing in some influence on the left leg to try and even it out. So I would literally just use the set weight tool to do this. I think it's the easiest way to do it. So that one actually doesn't have any for either, which is not good. We don't want that, and it's still set to that. So there we go. That fixes that. Okay, so we give that 250, 300. Yeah, it has to be roughly about even. 25, 25. Oh, it's gonna be about near enough. I think maybe it should even be less than that, really. Want that back up. It shouldn't be set to the low leg full stop. That's a bit of a fail. Right upper leg. 25. 25. There we go. I'm getting it now. My goof. Anyway, so average out as best as possible. It doesn't matter if the numbers don't quite match, but obviously you want to get it as near as possible. So, like so. So left upper leg, right upper leg. Get it as near as I can. That's probably about as near as I'm going to get it. I'll just make sure the same with this one. So I'm just trying to get the two numbers as near as possible. I'll never be able to get it perfect, but if I can get it pretty near, then that's what kind of matters. I think that's pretty near now. So I should now be able to move the character and it looks a little more correct, as you can see. Yeah. It's good, that. It works pretty well. And the next part is going back a little bit as well. Same sort of story again, right here as well. Another area to look out for. Anywhere where t-shirts or any bit of clothing is going to fold, even skin will obviously do this. So I'm going to do the same again, because currently that's got left upper leg, and we need to add some for the right leg just to even it out. There we go. Done. Yeah, and we can do the same on the back here. Though I think that one needs to be a little bit less. There we go. All done. Right. At least reasonably pleased. So everything's done now. Obviously there's still no face, but we're going to get to that. Yeah, we'll get to the face bone. Everything about the head seems to work alright. I mean, one thing actually I would do with a character like this, obviously Zeke's got a huge hair, and that's going to wobble independently. So, not necessarily something that you should think about doing now, but certainly with your characters, if you've got something like this, add an extra bone for the hair, so you can move the hair separately as well. I think on my original version of this, where I did it for the little iPhone game testing, it did actually have a bone up there for that, so it's well worth putting in. I think even have one for the glasses and everything, so you can go a little bit mad and add little bones for everything. But remember, also, as I said in the last video, there are limitations to how many you can have, so you have to kind of make sure that you're pretty efficient everywhere else. Anywho, I think that's everything.